It began on the edge of Earth's own black, a place so feared that even the bravest human soldiers refused to speak its name at night. A place where storms sliced through steel like paper, where the soil glowed with strange veins of blue fire, where forests whispered in languages no human ever recorded, and where mountains pulsed with a heartbeat of their own as if something enormous slept beneath them. For centuries, humans warned the galaxy never to step foot here, telling them Zone Black was not simply dangerous, it was alive. But today, something impossible happened. A massive alien warship, shaped like a giant black spear dipped in acid storms, descended through Earth's atmosphere with roaring engines that shook every mountain within 100 miles. The galaxy's most feared warriors, the Carthos Deathworlders, marched out with thunderous footsteps. 2,000 of them, each taller than a human tank, each wearing armor forged in the cores of dying stars, each carrying weapons that could cut through a battleship's hull. They were known across the galaxy as the species that feared nothing. Not fire, not poison seas, not creatures that ate metal, not planets that cracked open without warning. They had survived it all. So when they heard rumors that Earth, small, green, peaceful Earth, claimed to have a forbidden zone, they laughed. They believed humans created myths to look strong. They believed Earth's danger was fake. They believed no planet could compare to their own brutal worlds. So they came to prove the galaxy wrong. Human soldiers ran toward them, shouting warnings with desperation in their voices. Do not enter Zone Black. Turn back immediately. But the Carthos mocked the warnings, slamming their fists on their armored chests and laughing loudly. Weak humans, their commander growled. Your soft planet cannot harm Carthos warriors. We walk where we choose. And with absolute confidence the Deathworlders marched forward, tearing down the warning gates as if they were made of straw. But the moment they crossed the boundary, the sky flickered. A strange vibration rippled through the air like the world exhaled. The ground shifted under their feet. Trees that had been still suddenly turned their branches toward the warriors. Leaves whispered in a low, eerie hum as if greeting old enemies. The sunlight dimmed even though no clouds moved. A cold wind whipped through the Deathworlders' ranks, carrying with it the scent of metal and old bones. Some Carthos warriors paused, not in fear, but in confusion. Did you feel that? One asked. Another frowned. It is this planet's attempt to scare us. They marched deeper. Their heavy boots sank into the soil, which pulsed once like a heartbeat. A few warriors froze. Was that? It is nothing, their commander snapped. But then the birds fell silent. Every insect stopped moving. The air thickened. And from deep within the forest, a low, ancient growl rolled like thunder beneath the ground. Human soldiers watching from outside the barrier felt the tremor and stumbled back. One whispered, God help them. It woke up. Inside Zone Black, the Carthos finally started to sense something was wrong. A shadow moved between the trees, too big to belong to any Earth species. Then the trees themselves shifted, roots digging out of the ground like fingers, branches stretching like arms. A Deathworlder fired a plasma bolt into the air, but the energy beam bent, literally curved, before vanishing into the forest. This planet is wrong, one warrior muttered. But it was too late to turn back. The ground under their feet cracked open, releasing glowing blue mist that swirled like living smoke, wrapping around their legs. The mist whispered their names, whispered their fears, whispered their secrets. Some warriors staggered back, grabbing their helmets. Something is in my mind. Hold formation, their commander roared. But even he felt it. The cold, ancient intelligence watching them from the shadows. The wind changed direction. The trees shifted closer. The mountains rumbled as if something huge rolled beneath them. A low roar echoed across the valley, vibrating through armor, cracking stones, making even the strongest Carthos warriors flinch. A warrior pointed upward with a shaking hand. The sky, look! The sky above them rippled like water. Colors twisted. Clouds spun in spirals. A shape moved behind the distortion, massive, slow, ancient. Something older than human history. Something Earth had kept hidden from the galaxy. The Carthos froze as a pair of enormous glowing eyes appeared between the trees, taller than any creature they had faced before, bright like molten fire trapped inside stone. The forest fell completely silent. Even the wind stopped. The earth beneath them trembled in fear. The Carthos commander took a single step back, the first step of retreat his species had ever taken in its entire history. This is not a normal planet, he whispered, his voice shaking. The glowing eyes blinked once, slow, heavy, angry. And Zone Black breathed. The mountains groaned as cracks of red light split their sides. Rivers reversed direction, flowing upward. Rocks lifted into the air like feathers. The trees bent as if bowing to something massive walking through the shadows. The Carthos raised their weapons. The ground answered with another pulse. This one so strong the front line fell to their knees. And then the voice came, not heard by ears, felt inside every mind. Deep, ancient, cold. Earth warned you. You did not listen. The Carthos staggered. Some screamed. Some dropped their weapons. The commander howled, "Show yourself." The forest parted. Something monstrous stepped forward. Not an animal. Not a machine. Not anything the galaxy had seen before. A creature born from Earth's deepest heart, with stone-like skin glowing with living energy, towering above the trees, carrying the weight of a world on its back. It stared down at the Deathworlders with burning eyes. "This land remembers the stars you burned," it growled, voice shaking the mountains. "You will not leave unchanged." The Carthos finally understood. Earth was not soft. Earth was not peaceful. Earth was not weak. Earth was the oldest Deathworld of them all. And Zone Black was its beating heart. As the creature stepped closer, the shadows behind it opened into 100 more glowing eyes. And the Carthos realized the truth too late. Zone Black had awakened. And no one who walked inside would ever walk out the same. The moment Zone Black awakened fully, the 2,000 Carthos Deathworlders felt something they had never experienced on any battlefield. Something they did not even have a word for in their brutal language. Fear that crawled under their armor like ice. Fear that tightened their throats. Fear that made even their strongest warriors want to turn and run. But run where? The forest had already closed behind them, sealing the exit with twisting roots that grew together like living iron bars. The sky above them swirled in unnatural colors, and the ground beneath them pulsed with a heartbeat they could feel through their boots, as if the planet itself was alive and watching every move they made. The massive creature who stepped from the shadows, taller than any Carthos war beast, moved with slow, deliberate steps that shook leaves off trees, each footfall like a giant drumbeat hitting their chests. Its stone-like skin glowed with lines of molten gold that pulsed like rivers of fire under rock, and its eyes, those ancient burning eyes, never blinked, never softened, only stared with the cold judgment of something that had existed long before Carthos civilization even learned to hold a weapon. The Carthos commander, a warrior who survived 10 volcano wars and once killed a mountain serpent with his bare hands, felt his knees wobble, and he forced himself to stand tall, roaring to his troops, "Hold formation." Nothing defeats Carthos. But even as he shouted, his voice cracked at the end, because the creature was not alone. Behind it, between the trees, dozens of smaller shapes began moving, each one made of the same glowing stone flesh, each one carrying a different body shape. Some tall and thin like shadows stretched by fire, some wide and muscular with shoulders like boulders, some crawling on all fours like lions carved from molten rock, and some floating with no legs at all, drifting like spirits with red flames burning where their hearts should be. Whispers filled the air, not whispers from mouths, but from the ground itself, from the trees, from the wind. The Carthos covered their ears, but the whispers slid into their minds. "You were warned, humans warned you. Earth warned you." A giant Carthos smashed his fist into a tree to silence the voices, but the tree cracked open, revealing a glowing blue liquid that spilled out like blood and wrapped around his arm like living ropes, dragging him inside the trunk with a deafening scream until the tree swallowed him whole and sealed shut again. Panic spread like wildfire. Some Carthos fired plasma cannons, sending bright streaks of energy at the massive creature. But the blasts curved away mid-air, literally bending like metal bending under heat, and disappeared into the ground with soft hissing sounds. One warrior threw a grenade. The grenade froze in the air, turned into dust, and blew back into his face, melting his helmet like wax. The commander tried again to lead. "Fall back," he shouted, turning to the retreat path only to see that the forest behind them had changed its shape completely. The trees forming walls, the soil rising like tall cliffs, the path twisting in impossible directions, making it clear, Zone Black was not a place. It was a living maze. A predator. A gatekeeper. And the Carthos were prey. The ancient creature finally stepped close enough that the ground under the Deathworlders cracked in long spiraling lines. It leaned forward, lowering its massive head until its burning eyes were only a few steps away from the front line. Its voice rolled out like thunder. Earth sleeps, until forced to wake. The Carthos trembled, and some even stepped back, their instincts screaming that this was not a normal battle. Not a normal world, not a normal enemy. The creature lifted one enormous hand made of stone and glowing fire, placing it on the ground. The earth shivered. Then the mountains in the distance roared and split open, sending a wave of hot wind across the valley. The Carthos commander, losing control, shouted, "We did not come here to die. Carthos does not bow," and drove his spear toward the giant creature. The spear tip touched the creature's chest and shattered into glowing dust. The commander stared at the broken handle in disbelief before the creature slowly leaned closer until its massive cracked stone face was inches from his. "You brought war to a sleeping world," the creature whispered inside every mind, "and now you wake what should never wake." Behind the creature, the smaller beings began moving in a slow circle, surrounding the Carthos. The ground grew hot. The trees leaned forward like watching spectators. The sky flickered from blue to purple to red to pitch black. And then, with a deep rumble, the creature raised its hand. The Carthos braced for impact. But instead of striking, the creature breathed. A long, deep, ancient breath that made the air tremble and the soil soften like liquid. And suddenly, every Carthos warrior was dragged to their knees by a crushing invisible force. The commander tried to rise, muscles straining, veins bulging on his neck, but the pressure pushed him harder until his face was inches from the dirt. The massive creature lowered its burning gaze. "This land belongs to the Vastborn," it thundered softly, "and you have stepped where only death walks." The commander's eyes widened. "The Vastborn?" he whispered. He had heard the name only once in ancient galactic legends. Stories told in fear, stories about a species older than war, older than the stars. A species that never leaves its home world because its home world is too dangerous even for them. They never appeared in galactic records. They never contacted other empires. So the galaxy assumed the Vastborn were extinct. They were not extinct. They were here, on Earth, protecting Zone Black. And the Carthos had just invaded their sanctuary. The creature took another heavy step, cracking the ground in a web of glowing lines. "You will return," it growled. "But not the way you came." The air thickened. The vines rose. The mountains groaned. And Zone Black prepared to show the Carthos what true danger meant. Night fell without warning, dropping over Zone Black like a giant shadow pulling a curtain over the world, smothering the last bit of sunlight and turning the entire land into a pitch-black void so thick it felt like ink pouring from the sky. And the 2,000 Carthos Deathworlders, once proud, once fearless, now stood trembling in total darkness they had never experienced before. Darkness that swallowed sound, swallowed breath, swallowed courage, a darkness so deep that even their thermal sensors showed nothing but a cold, empty void, as if the world itself had been erased around them. Their commander tried to activate the emergency night lamps built into their armor, but the lights flickered once, then died instantly, devoured by the darkness as if something hungry had eaten the energy. A few warriors lit flares, bright crimson flames bursting alive for a second. But then the flares bent upward, the fire twisting unnaturally like it was afraid of touching the ground, and the flames stretched into long thin shapes before bursting apart into floating sparks that drifted away like lost stars. The Carthos stared in disbelief. "This is not nature," one whispered, his voice shaking. "Nature has rules." But Zone Black did not follow rules. It made its own. And tonight, it wanted to show the Carthos what true night meant. The forest around them began to glow with thousands of tiny white dots. Eyes. Eyes staring from every direction. Eyes blinking in slow, unnatural rhythm. Some were too high to belong to any animal. Some were too low. Some were moving sideways. Some hovered. and none of them belonged to the Vastborn. These were something else. Something older. Something the Vastborn did not control. The commander tried to pull his troops together, shouting, "Stay close. Do not run." But his voice was swallowed by the darkness, echoing back to him in a distorted version of his own tone, whispering the command again but slower, colder, wrong. "Stay close, stay close." The Cathos spun around in panic. Some shouted. Some raised weapons. Some trembled like children. A low growl rolled across the forest floor, long, deep, ancient, felt more than heard. It came from everywhere at once. A second growl answered it. Then a third. Then 10 more. The forest trembled. Something enormous moved through the trees, bending trunks like twigs, its footsteps slow and heavy, each one cracking the earth. Then the screams started. A warrior from the left flank was lifted into the air by something unseen, his massive armored body flailing as he was dragged upside down into the treetops, his screams fading into a horrible wet crunch. On the right side, another Cathos was pulled underground by tendrils that shot from the soil, wrapping around his legs like living ropes. He stabbed at them with his blade, roaring in fury, but the tendrils tightened, dragging him deeper until only his hand remained above the surface. Then that hand sank too. The ground sealed over him as if he never existed. Panic exploded across the ranks. Plasma rifles fired in every direction, glowing bolts of energy flying into the darkness. But the beams bent, twisted, disappeared, swallowed by the black as if the night itself drank them. The commander tried to hold his line, roaring orders, pushing warriors back into formation, but something small crawled across the ground. Something that looked like a shadow with legs, and when it touched a warrior's boot, that warrior collapsed instantly, clutching his chest, shaking violently until he went still. "Pull him back," someone shouted. But when they touched his armor, it fell apart like sand. The warrior had dissolved. Dissolved. The commander turned around, breath shaking, heart pounding, trying to understand what kind of planet this was, what kind of world humans lived on, what kind of horrors they survived every day, and for the first time in his life he realized something horrifying. If humans could live near Zone Black and survive, then humans were far stronger than the galaxy ever believed. The ground suddenly lifted like a wave, tossing entire squads into the air. Trees twisted into enormous spirals, their branches stretching like arms reaching for the sky. The shadows between the trees thickened, forming shapes, humanoid shapes with long limbs and hollow faces, creatures made of pure darkness that walked like nightmares pulled from the oldest fears of any species. One of the shadow figures stepped forward, its body taller than most Cathos, its face smooth and featureless except for 2 glowing white circles where eyes should be. It hovered toward a warrior, tilting its head with childlike curiosity, and when the warrior raised his gun to shoot, the creature gently touched the barrel. The gun melted. The warrior screamed, dropping the metal as it melted onto his hands like liquid fire. More shadow figures appeared, their movements slow, soft, almost gentle, but everything they touched died. The Cathos tried to retreat, pushing deeper into the forest, but the forest shifted shape, the trees rearranging themselves like moving walls, trapping them, funneling them toward a narrow valley filled with thick mist that glowed blue. The commander hesitated. Every instinct screamed, "Do not enter." But behind them came the sound of something enormous breathing. A long, heavy inhale, a low rumble of air being pulled by colossal lungs. The Vastborn Guardian. It was returning. They could not go back. They stepped into the mist. And the mist came alive. It wrapped around their bodies, slipping through armor like cold fingers touching skin, sliding into their helmets, whispering into their ears in voices that sounded like their mothers, their fathers, their dead children, their worst nightmares. Some warriors dropped to their knees, begging for the voices to stop. Some ripped off their helmets and ran screaming into the dark. The commander pushed forward, shaking, whispering, "Hold the line, hold the line." But the mist thickened. And when it cleared, when the Cathos blinked and looked around, half of their warriors were gone. Not dead. Not bleeding. Just gone. Vanished as if the mist had erased their existence from reality. The commander fell to his knees, breath shaking, eyes wide. "What is this world?" he whispered. "What is this planet?" And for the first time in their history, the Carthos Deathworlders, the terror of the galaxy, the undefeated warriors of 1,000 wars, felt truly powerless, truly hunted, truly small. And somewhere deep inside Zone Black, the Earth rumbled again. Something larger, something older, something worse had begun to wake up. The mist thinned slowly, drifting away like silent ghosts fading into the trees, and when the remaining Carthos Deathworlders finally saw the world around them clearly again, their hearts almost stopped because the valley they had entered was not a normal valley at all. It was shaped like a massive bowl carved perfectly into the earth, its walls smooth and curved, as if made by something with hands large enough to shape mountains like soft clay, and at the center of that valley stood a stone platform covered in ancient carvings glowing faint blue, each symbol pulsing in slow rhythm like an old heartbeat echoing through time. The Deathworlders stared, trembling, their bodies shaking with exhaustion, fear, and shock, their armor cracked, their faces pale beneath their helmets, and their commander, once proud, once unshakable, now knelt in the dirt, whispering to himself as he tried to understand how half his army had vanished in the mist without leaving a single drop of blood or a broken armor piece behind. But Zone Black did not allow them time to recover. The ground beneath the valley vibrated, soft at first, then stronger, then violently shaking until cracks split across the platform and blue light poured out like glowing liquid that crawled across the soil like rivers waking after centuries of drought. The valley walls quivered as stones lifted into the air, floating weightlessly, circling the Deathworlders like a silent warning. The forest beyond the valley leaned inward, trees creaking like old bones bending. And then, something began rising from the center of the stone platform. At first it looked like a pillar. Then it stretched upward like a spine. Then arms emerged, massive arms made of black stone and glowing veins of blue fire. Then a torso taller than the trees. And finally a face, if it could be called a face, formed from layers of cracked stone sliding into place, two enormous white eyes opening like molten moons. The vast-born guardian had returned. But this one was different from the creature they saw earlier. It was older, larger. Its body carried scars carved into the stone, deep claw marks, cracks filled with ancient light, burned patches that hinted at battles older than any Carthos civilization. It looked like a being forged from the planet's bones themselves. A primordial protector. A living monument to Earth's oldest war. The Carthos stumbled backward, some tripping over their own feet, some dropping their weapons entirely. The commander tried to speak, tried to shout an order, but all he managed was a broken whisper. Stand firm. But it didn't matter. The Guardian was not interested in battle. It looked down at the tiny warriors with glowing white eyes, and when it spoke, the entire valley trembled. Earth remembers your kind. The words struck their minds like heavy stones. Some collapsed. Some screamed. Some clutched their helmets with shaking hands. The commander forced himself to look up. We have never been here, we do not know this place. The ground responded before the Guardian did, a deep rumbling that cracked open the stone beneath their feet. Your ancestors did. The Carthos flinched. The commander stared in disbelief. That is not possible. Our ancestors never reached Earth. The sky above them boomed, interrupting him. The clouds twisted violently, forming shapes, shadows of giant creatures falling from the heavens, long ago, crashing into Earth's oceans, its mountains, its forests. The images floated above them like giant memories painted across the sky. The Carthos watched in horror. Their ancestors, the ancient Carthos tribes, were shown fleeing from something, running across their homeworld, chased by enormous shadow beasts with glowing white eyes. And those beasts looked exactly like the Vastborn. The commander gasped. That cannot be. The Vastborn visited our planet. The Guardian lowered its head until its enormous glowing eyes stared directly into his soul. We warned them. The Carthos shakily stepped back, his voice cracking. Warned them of what? The Guardian extended one giant stone hand and pointed toward the horizon where the mountains began to glow red, pulsing like beating hearts ready to burst. This. The valley vibrated violently. The ground split open in wide, jagged lines. Lava-like blue light surged upward in pillars, twisting into the sky like bright serpents. The trees outside the valley bent backward in a wave, as if something huge was pushing them aside. The Carthos raised their weapons again, but their hands shook too violently to keep aim. The commander shouted, "What is happening? What is coming?" The Guardian's answer rolled across the valley like thunder. Zone Black is the scar of the First War. It holds memories that should never wake. And now they are waking because of you. The Carthos felt the temperature drop to freezing. Breath turned into white vapor. A cold wind howled through the valley, carrying a sound none of them would ever forget, a scream. Not human. Not animal. Something different. Something from a time before languages. Before civilizations. Before life took its first breath. A scream of something waking up. The Carthos turned toward the far end of the valley, and time seemed to stop. A massive shape rose from the earth, bigger than the Guardian, bigger than any creature they had ever seen. It had no clear form, its body made of shifting shadows and glowing lines of blue and white, its eyes hollow voids filled with swirling light, its shape constantly changing like a nightmare searching for a stable form. The commander collapsed, whispering, What is that?" The Guardian answered with what sounded like sorrow. "The first enemy Earth ever fought. A creature older than your stars." The monstrous shape turned its hollow eyes toward the Carthos. Every warrior felt their minds shake under its gaze, memories flashing, fears surfacing, hearts pounding like drums of war. And in that moment, the commander finally understood. Zone Black was not just dangerous. It was not just alive. It was not just a warning. Zone Black was a battlefield, a graveyard, and a prison. And the Carthos had broken the lock. The monstrous shape let out another scream, one that cracked stones, shook trees, and made the sky ripple like liquid, and the vast-born Guardian stepped forward, placing itself between the creature and the Carthos. "You wanted a challenge," it growled coldly. "Now face Earth's oldest one." The ground shook. The shadows moved. The creature lunged forward. And the Carthos Deathworlders found themselves caught between the Protector and the Beast, trapped in the deadliest place in the universe. Zone Black had fully awakened. And there was no way out. The valley shook like a dying world as the ancient shadow creature lunged forward, its shifting body tearing through the mist and light like a storm of living darkness, and the Carthos Deathworlders, already trembling from fear they had never known, were thrown off their feet as the vast-born Guardian charged forward to meet the monster head-on, each colossal footstep cracking the ground and sending shockwaves through the soil, while the mountains around the valley groaned like wounded giants. Remembering old wars. The commander, bruised and shaking, tried to stand, but the force of the creature's scream dropped him again as if invisible hands pushed him into the dirt. He gasped, feeling the pressure crush his chest, and through blurry eyes he saw the vastborn slam into the shadow beast, stone meeting darkness with the sound of thunder trapped inside steel caverns. The Guardian's glowing fists smashed into the creature's swirling chest, sending ripples of blue flame across its form, but every crack closed instantly, the shadow reforming like liquid night refusing to die. The Deathworlders watched in horror as the creature wrapped its long tendrils around the vastborn, squeezing with such monstrous strength that glowing shards of stone broke off the Guardian's body and fell like burning meteors into the valley floor. The Guardian roared, a deep, ancient sound filled with anger and pain, and all the trees in the valley bowed as if the roar was a wind strong enough to bend the world. The Carthos flinched, shaking uncontrollably, because they had never seen anything strong enough to injure a vastborn. Yet this creature did it effortlessly. The commander shouted hoarsely, "We must help it. Fire! Fire now!" And the remaining Carthos opened fire in panic, launching plasma bolts, explosive shells, and sonic blasts at the shadow creature. But the attacks warped in midair, bending, twisting, melting, until they turned into dull sparks that faded before touching the creature. The creature didn't even notice the attempt. It only focused on the vastborn, squeezing tighter, pushing the Guardian to its knees. The glowing runes on the Guardian's chest flickered weakly, its stone fingers digging into the ground for support, cracking the earth open as deep blue light poured out like ancient blood. The commander stumbled back, watching with horror as the Guardian struggled, and for the first time in his life, tears formed in his eyes. This is wrong. Nothing should be stronger than a vastborn. The ground quaked again. Suddenly, the trees around the valley twisted violently, their roots ripping free from the soil as if the entire forest felt the Guardian's pain. Roots shot upward like spears, branches lengthened into sharp wooden claws, and the forest itself attacked the shadow creature, striking from every direction with unstoppable rage. But nothing worked. The shadow beast spread itself thinner, its body dissolving into a cloud of black smoke that the roots passed through uselessly, then reforming behind the Guardian, slamming into its back and driving its massive stone body into the earth. The valley floor cracked open, swallowing trees, rocks, and pieces of the Guardian's armor as the ground collapsed beneath the impact. The Carthos scrambled away, some falling into the cracks, clawing their way out, screaming in terror as blue light seeped from the ground and wrapped around their legs like burning fog. The commander pulled one of his soldiers up by the arm, shouting, "Move! Move, you fool!" But the soldier's eyes widened as he looked past the commander with pure terror, because something else was waking. The cracks in the valley floor spread wider, releasing waves of blue mist that twisted upward like giant serpents, and within that mist shapes moved, shapes as large as the Vastborn, as monstrous as the shadow creature, shapes with glowing cracks in their bodies and hollow faces carved from ancient stone. More Guardians, more Vastborn, but they were not rising to help. They were rising in pain. As if the creature's awakening had forced them out of ages-long sleep they were never meant to leave. The commander whispered in horror, "Earth. Earth kept these monsters trapped, and we broke the seal." The shadow creature sensed the new awakenings, shrieked with fury, and lashed its tendrils outward, striking the rising Vastborn before they could stand, shattering their half-awake forms into pieces of glowing rock. The forest wailed. The mountains screamed. And the Carthos finally understood. They were not inside a battlefield. They were inside a prison. A prison holding things too dangerous for the universe to know. The Vastborn Guardian, battered and broken, heaved itself back to its feet with a roar that split the sky, its glowing white eyes burning with ancient rage, and it slammed its fists into the shadow beast again. This time with such force that a column of pure blue fire shot upward into the sky, cutting through the clouds and making the night flash white for miles. The shadow creature staggered back, its form shaking violently, pieces of its body flickering and dissolving, and for the first time it looked uncertain, almost fearful. The Guardian coughed, its glowing veins flickering dangerously like embers fighting to stay alive, and then it turned its head toward the Carthos. Its massive eyes dimmed with sorrow. "This is your doing," it whispered inside every mind. "But you will not face it alone." And with one final roar, the Vastborn charged again, forcing the creature away from the waking Guardians, away from the valley, away from the Carthos, sacrificing itself so the Deathworlders could survive one more moment. The commander fell to his knees, fists clenched, voice breaking. Why save us?" The Guardian's voice echoed faintly, softer, weaker. "Because humans would." The valley fell silent, and for the first time in their existence, the Carthos felt shame. The valley lay in ruins, shaking like a wounded heart as the Vastborn Guardian charged again into the towering shadow creature. Its massive stone body cracked and leaking blue fire, its glowing veins fading with every movement. Yet still it fought with the strength of a dying world refusing to fall, and the remaining Carthos Deathworlders, now fewer than 500, watched in helpless terror as the Guardian was thrown across the battlefield like a broken mountain, crashing into the valley wall and collapsing part of the cliff in a thunderous roar that echoed over the entire zone. Black dust filled the air. Rocks rained down. The Guardian didn't rise. The commander, blood on his helmet and fear in his bones, whispered, No, get up, you must get up." But the Guardian remained still, only faint pulses of light flickering weakly under its cracked chest as if its heart was trying, desperately, to keep beating. Before the Deathworlders could breathe, the shadow creature turned its hollow eyes toward them again, its swirling form growing taller, wider, hungrier as if the Guardian's weakening made it stronger. Its tendrils twisted in the air like blades made of smoke and death, and with a single silent command the entire forest behind the Carthos bent forward, trees lowering like living beasts about to pounce, vines slithering across the ground, the land itself shifting to trap the Deathworlders in a shrinking circle. The commander shouted, "Run! Spread out!" but the ground denied them. The soil turned soft like mud, then hard like stone, then rose into long pillars that blocked every escape path. Zone Black didn't want them to leave. It wanted them to face the price of waking its oldest nightmare. The shadow creature lunged forward, its tendrils slamming into the ground with a massive impact that sent dozens of Carthos flying into the air, their heavy armored bodies tossed like leaves in a storm. Some hit trees and broke instantly. Some were wrapped by vines and dragged screaming into the darkness. Some vanished inside the ground as if swallowed by the earth itself. The commander roared in fury, launching himself at the creature with a glowing blade in both hands, slashing at its tendrils with all his strength. But the blade passed through the shadow like smoke, leaving no mark, and the creature responded by wrapping a tendril around his arm and flinging him into a stone pillar so hard that his armor cracked and his breath burst from his lungs in a pained gasp. He tried to stand, but couldn't. His legs shook uncontrollably. His vision blurred. For the first time in his life, he felt fragile. Weak. Small. Around him, the remaining Carthos screamed in panic. "We are dying. There is no escape. This world will kill us all. Even our weapons cannot hurt it." The commander clenched the dirt under his fingertips, trembling. "Humans, how do they live near this?" he whispered. His answer came from behind him, not in the form of words, but in the form of a sound, a low, soft hum. Weak, fading, but alive. The vast-born guardian. It moved. Slowly, painfully, dragging its massive stone arm across the ground, pushing itself up a few inches at a time as cracks deepened across its body and more blue energy leaked from its wounds like dying light. The commander watched, breath shaking, as the guardian forced its colossal frame upright, leaning heavily on one knee, its glowing white eyes dimmed with exhaustion but burning with a fierce, ancient determination. "Do not fear," its voice echoed faintly inside their minds. "Earth does not abandon those who are trapped." The shadow creature shrieked in fury, lunging again toward the guardian with all its devouring darkness. The guardian raised its arms to shield the Carthos, even though its arms shook violently from pain. The impact slammed into the guardian, breaking more of its stone armor, sending cracks racing across its chest like lightning-splitting rock. But it didn't fall. It held. It protected them. It protected the very invaders who awakened this nightmare. The Carthos commander choked on breath, tears filling his eyes, not just from fear, but from something else. Shame. Awe. Gratitude. "Why?" he shouted. "Why save us when we caused this?" The guardian's eyes slowly turned toward him, glowing faintly, its voice soft as crumbling stone. "Because humans would have saved you." The words hit the commander like a spear through the heart, because he suddenly understood the truth. The Vastborn didn't protect Earth for their own sake. They protected Earth because humans were worth protecting. Humans, fragile in body but unmatched in spirit, had lived next to this nightmare for thousands of years and still showed kindness, bravery, and mercy. And now the Carthos, who mocked humans as weak, realized that humans were the strongest species they had ever met, not because of their bodies, but because of their hearts. The shadow creature screeched again, twisting its tendrils into lethal blades aimed at the Guardian's core. The Guardian braced itself for the strike, knowing it might be its last. But then, something happened. The ground beneath the Carthos lit up. Blue lines spread across the earth, circling the remaining warriors, forming glowing patterns like ancient sigils drawn by the planet itself. The Carthos froze. What is happening? Is it saving us? Is this Earth's magic? The Guardian whispered weakly, "Stand still. Do not move. Earth will choose your path." The ground began to sink beneath the Carthos' feet. A circular platform lowered into the earth, carrying the remaining warriors underground, away from the battle, away from the shadow creature, away from death. The last thing they saw before disappearing underground was the Vastborn Guardian stepping forward again, raising its broken arms to face the monster alone. The commander, tears running down his face, reached up toward the Guardian as the earth sealed over them, whispering, "We will not forget this, not ever." The Guardian's last whispered words echoed into the closing darkness. "Tell the galaxy. Earth is not weak. Earth is watching." Then the ground sealed shut, cutting the Carthos off from the battle above, leaving the wounded guardian alone against the creature it once defeated ages ago, ready to give its final breath to protect the very warriors who had awakened its nightmare. The underground chamber lowered the surviving Carthos Deathworlders deeper and deeper into the earth, the walls glowing with soft blue veins like the planet's heartbeat guiding them through a world no alien had ever seen. And the commander, lying on the stone floor, bruised and trembling, listened to the fading echoes of the Guardian's last message. Earth is watching, as the light above sealed completely, trapping them in a silent, ancient cavern full of symbols etched by hands older than any civilization in the galaxy. Symbols that glowed faintly like memories sleeping under dust. The commander pushed himself up on shaking elbows, trying to steady his breath, trying to control the panic inside him. But all around him his remaining soldiers, barely 200 now, were collapsing, trembling, crying, some curled on the ground whispering prayers to Carthos gods who had never seemed so distant before, their hardened spirits finally breaking under the weight of fear, guilt, and the crushing realization that the universe was far larger and far stranger than they ever imagined. The cavern vibrated softly, a hum pulsing like the rhythm of breathing stone, and the commander rose, limping, gripping the wall as he whispered, this place is alive." As if answering him, the carvings on the walls began glowing brighter, shifting like living ink, rearranging themselves into scenes. Memories painted in light and shadow, showing ancient humans standing beside the Vastborn, fighting the same shadow creature thousands of years ago. Humans battered and bleeding but refusing to leave the Guardian's side. Humans holding torches against impossible darkness, their small shapes defying a monster that blotted out the sky. The Carthos stared at the images, stunned, humbled, silent. They saw humans, tiny compared to the Vastborn, rushing forward with weapons made of stone and fire, the Vastborn shielding them with massive arms, humans patching the Guardian's wounds with herbs and glowing soil, the Vastborn bowing its head to a human leader as if acknowledging a partner, not a servant. The commander stepped closer, his breath shaking, his heart aching. So this is why they protect humans," he whispered. "This is why humans survive here. This is why Earth is strong." The light shifted again, showing the end of the ancient war. The Vastborn and humans together sealing the shadow creature deep inside Zone Black, burying it under mountains, locking it with symbols carved into the land, covering it with forests grown to hold it down, wrapping the entire place in a living cage made of earth and fire, a cage only Earth could maintain. The commander realized the truth like a blade cutting through his pride. Humans had lived beside this prison for thousands of years and survived. Humans warned the galaxy not to enter, not out of arrogance, but mercy. Humans were never weak. They were simply quiet. They hid their strength. They hid their war. They hid the Vastborn. The commander sank to his knees, tears falling onto the glowing stone as he whispered, We mocked them. We laughed at them. We insulted the strongest species in the universe." Before he could say more, the chamber shook violently. The ceiling dust fell like gray rain. The shadow creature above had grown stronger and was tearing through the surface again. The humming walls cracked. Blue veins dimmed. The air thinned. The warriors clung to each other in panic. But then, something new moved. A soft light floated from the far end of the chamber, pulsing like a warm heartbeat. The light grew, forming a tall shape, a humanoid figure made entirely of golden threads of energy, gentle, warm, almost comforting. It wasn't a Vastborn. It wasn't a human. It was something else. A memory. A guardian echo. The glowing figure walked silently to the commander and rested a shimmering hand on his shoulder. Its touch felt like warmth after endless winter. The commander gasped as a voice, not loud, not frightening, but soft, tired, ancient, whispered inside his chest. "You must leave. Earth cannot protect you much longer." The commander shook his head. "But, the Vastborn above, he is fighting alone. He will die." The golden figure's light dimmed sadly. "He knows." The words punched the commander's heart. "We caused this, we woke the monster. We broke the seal, why would he save us?" The golden figure flickered, its voice gentle. "Because humans would save you." The commander's throat tightened. He looked at his surviving troops, broken, trembling, ashamed. The golden figure pointed toward a tunnel of glowing blue stone that had appeared behind them. "Go." Run. And when you return to the stars, speak the truth. Tell them what Earth holds. Tell them why it must never be touched. The chamber shook again, harder. Stones cracked, light flickered, dust rained like a storm. The shadow creature was tearing the Guardian apart above them. The figure's glow trembled, fading. Go now, or none of you will live. The commander rose, supporting his wounded soldiers, pushing them toward the tunnel as the walls collapsed behind them. The chamber roared as if the planet itself was screaming in pain. The golden figure lingered a moment longer, looking upward through the stone ceiling with sorrow. Forgive us, old friend. Then it vanished like a dying spark. The Carthos ran, limping, crying, terrified, as the tunnel guided them upward through twisting corridors of glowing stone, through heat and darkness, until at last they burst out through a crack in the mountain into fresh cold air. Only then did they realize the truth. Only 5 remained. Out of 2,000. And behind them, the sky exploded with blue and black light. The Vastborn's final battle echoing across the heavens. The commander fell to his knees, weeping openly as the ground shook beneath him. We should never have come here, he whispered. And we will never forget what we saw. He looked at the sky one last time, voice breaking. Earth, forgive us. And Zoneblack fell silent. The 5 surviving Carthos stumbled out of the crack in the mountain, breathing the cold night air as if it was their first breath in a lifetime, their bodies trembling, their armor shattered, their spirits broken, and as they turned back toward Zoneblack, the sky above the wasteland pulsed with massive waves of blue and black light, each flash stretching across the clouds like silent lightning, each pulse shaking the ground beneath their feet as if the planet itself was crying, and somewhere inside that storm of light the Vastborn Guardian fought alone against the shadow creature, its stone body crumbling, its glowing veins flickering like dying stars desperately holding on to life for just one more moment. The commander watched the horizon with wide, wet eyes, his voice cracking as he whispered, "He's still fighting. After everything we did, he is still fighting." And the other 4 Carthos knelt behind him, lowering their heads, not in fear, but in respect, something their proud species had never shown to any other race. Then the sky changed. The blue pulses slowed. The black storm thickened. A giant beam of white light pierced the clouds like a sword made of the sun itself, and for a moment the land glowed with blinding brilliance, forcing the Carthos to shield their eyes, and through that white light they saw a silhouette, tall, massive, kneeling. The Vastborn. The Guardian. Its body cracked open from head to toe, glowing light leaking like the last breath of a dying star. The shadow creature wrapped around it like a storm trying to devour the sun, its hollow eyes burning with rage. And then, everything went silent. The sky froze. The wind stopped. The clouds paused in place like time had been held by an unseen hand. The commander felt his heart stop in his chest. The shadow creature suddenly recoiled, its entire form shaking violently as if something inside it had been pierced. The Vastborn leaned forward, placing one giant hand on the creature's swirling chest, and in a voice softer than wind, softer than light, softer than memory, it whispered words the Carthos would never forget: "Earth will not fall." A pulse exploded from the Guardian's hand, white, blue, golden. A shockwave so bright it erased all shadows, all darkness, all sound. The ground shook like a newborn star being born. The mountains trembled. The forest bent backward. The Carthos covered their heads as the wave hit them like warm fire, not harming them, but pushing them back with the force of truth. When the light faded, the sky was empty. The shadow creature was gone. Completely gone. Erased from existence. And in its place, lying broken on the ridge of Zoneblack, was the Vastborn Guardian. Still. Silent. Fading. The commander ran toward it, stumbling, falling, crawling on hands and knees until he reached the massive stone hand half buried in rubble. The Guardian's once bright eyes were dim, flickering like candles fighting their last second. The commander placed both hands on the cold stone and bowed his head, tears streaming freely. "We do not deserve your mercy," he whispered. "We brought this horror upon your world, and you still saved us." The Vastborn's eyes glowed faintly, one last time, and its voice echoed softly inside the commander's heart. "Tell them, humans protect, Even when others do not, tell the stars. Earth remembers. The light inside its eyes faded. The blue veins dimmed. Its stone chest cracked one final time. And then the glow went out completely. The vast-born guardian, last of its kind, died protecting the very invaders who awakened its ancient enemy. The commander let out a trembling breath, feeling something inside him shatter forever. He touched his forehead to the guardian's hand, giving it the first Carthos warrior salute ever given to another species. The other four followed, kneeling silently in front of the fallen protector. "We will tell the galaxy," the commander whispered. "We will make them understand the truth." As they stood up and looked across the ravaged land, something strange happened. The forest began to regrow. The broken mountains settled. The blue veins dimmed into soft, harmless light. Zone Black was sealing itself again, healing from the battle, repairing the prison humans had guarded for ages. And the 5 Carthos understood. They were being allowed to leave. Not chased. Not hunted. Allowed. The commander looked at the sky and whispered, "Earth, we owe you a debt we can never repay." Their ship, damaged but still functional, responded to their emergency beacon. As they boarded and lifted off, the Carthos stared through the windows at Earth's glowing horizon. They had come to mock humans. They had come to prove Earth was weak. They had come to conquer. Instead, they learned fear. They learned respect. They learned the truth. And when their ship left orbit, the commander sent a final message to the Galactic Senate, a message that would shake the galaxy. Do not provoke Earth. Do not test humans. We saw what they keep hidden. We saw what they protect. Earth is not weak. Earth is the real Deathworld. And we survived, only because Earth allowed it. Then the ship disappeared into the stars, carrying 5 haunted warriors and a story that would echo through every corner of the galaxy forever.